No one believed it could happen so fast. Generals, politicians, and entire nations thought they had months, even years, to prepare. Yet, in a matter of days, armies collapsed, borders vanished, and centuries-old defenses became meaningless. What shocked the world was not just defeat, but speed. An invisible storm of tanks, aircraft, and radio signals tore through Europe with terrifying precision. This was not chaos, it was calculation. A new way of war had arrived, and it would rewrite every rule of combat. The world would later give it a name, but when it first struck, it felt unstoppable. This was Blitzkrieg. The idea behind Blitzkrieg, meaning lightning war, did not appear overnight. It grew from the ashes of World War I, where trench warfare had turned Europe into a graveyard of stagnation and mass death. German military thinkers studied that failure closely, especially officers like Heinz Guderian, who believed speed and coordination could break the deadlock of static warfare. Influenced by earlier theorists and battlefield experiences, they envisioned mobile forces striking deep into enemy territory. This concept emphasized movement, surprise, and relentless pressure rather than slow attrition. By the 1930s, Germany had quietly begun preparing to test this theory in real war. Central to Blitzkrieg was the use of combined arms warfare, where tanks, infantry, artillery, and air power worked as a single, unified force. Unlike traditional armies that separated these elements, German strategy focused on coordination through radio communication. Tanks were no longer just support units, they became the spearhead of attack. Infantry followed closely to secure territory, while artillery suppressed resistance. Above them, the Luftwaffe delivered devastating airstrikes, targeting communication lines, supply routes, and enemy morale. This level of coordination allowed German forces to strike faster than opponents could respond. The first true test of Blitzkrieg came in September 1939 with the invasion of Poland. German forces attacked from multiple directions, using speed and shock to overwhelm Polish defenses. While Poland had brave soldiers and strong cavalry traditions, it lacked the mechanized coordination needed to counter modern armored warfare. German tanks penetrated deep behind enemy lines, cutting off units and isolating entire armies. Air superiority allowed German bombers to destroy infrastructure and spread fear among civilians. Within weeks, Poland collapsed, stunning observers around the world. The invasion of Poland revealed a harsh reality. Traditional defense strategies were obsolete. Static lines and slow mobilization could not stop a fast, coordinated assault. Western European nations watched closely but misunderstood the lesson. Many believed Poland fell because it was weaker, not because the method of war itself had changed. This miscalculation would prove catastrophic. As Germany refined its tactics, Europe remained dangerously unprepared for what was coming next. In May 1940, Blitzkrieg struck Western Europe with full force. German forces invaded the Netherlands, Belgium, and France in a coordinated assault that bypassed the heavily fortified Maginot Line. Instead of attacking where defenses were strongest, German tanks pushed through the Ardennes Forest, an area believed to be impassable. This bold gamble paid off. Armored divisions advanced rapidly, crossing rivers and encircling enemy forces before they could regroup. The speed of the advance left Allied commanders confused and disconnected. France, one of Europe's most powerful nations, collapsed in just 6 weeks. This was not due to lack of courage, but failure of strategy and communication. French forces were spread thin, reacting instead of anticipating. German units exploited gaps, severed supply lines, and surrounded entire armies. The evacuation at Dunkirk saved hundreds of thousands of Allied soldiers, but it also symbolized the shock of defeat. Europe realized that war had entered a new era, one where speed mattered more than size. Blitzkrieg relied heavily on psychological warfare as much as physical destruction. Sirens from dive bombers, sudden armored breakthroughs, and rapid advances shattered enemy morale. Civilians fled in panic, clogging roads and disrupting military movements. Command structures collapsed under pressure, unable to keep pace with rapidly changing battlefields. German commanders encouraged initiative, allowing lower officers to exploit opportunities without waiting for orders. This flexibility contrasted sharply with rigid command systems used by many opponents. However, Blitzkrieg was not flawless or unstoppable. Its success depended on momentum, supply lines, and air superiority. When these elements were disrupted, the strategy began to strain. This became evident during the invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941. Operation Barbarossa initially followed, Blitzkrieg principles achieving massive territorial gains and encircling millions of Soviet troops. But the vast distances of the Eastern Front stretched supply lines thin. Harsh weather, fierce resistance, and logistical failures slowed the advance. The Soviet Union adapted quickly, trading space for time and rebuilding its forces deep inland. German tanks struggled in mud and snow, conditions Blitzkrieg had not been designed to handle. Soviet industry relocated east, producing vast numbers of tanks and aircraft. As the war dragged on, Germany's inability to sustain rapid offensives became clear. Battles like Stalingrad marked a turning point, where Blitzkrieg's momentum finally broke under relentless resistance. Allied forces studied Blitzkrieg carefully and learned from its strengths. The United States and Britain adapted similar combined arms tactics, emphasizing coordination between ground and air forces. The Normandy invasion in 1944 reflected these lessons, using deception, air superiority, and rapid advances once a foothold was secured. Unlike Germany, the Allies also mastered logistics, ensuring continuous supply and reinforcement. Blitzkrieg had changed warfare, but it no longer belonged to Germany alone. By the end of World War II, Blitzkrieg was no longer a uniquely German concept. It had evolved into modern mechanized warfare practiced by militaries around the world. The core principles, speed, surprise, coordination, and flexibility, became standard military doctrine. Yet the cost of its early success was enormous. Cities were destroyed, nations occupied, and millions of lives lost in campaigns, measured not in years, but in weeks. Blitzkrieg proved that war could move faster than human suffering could be processed. The legacy of Blitzkrieg is not just military innovation, but a warning. It showed how quickly civilization can collapse when technology and strategy outpace diplomacy and ethics. The shock it delivered reshaped borders, alliances, and the global balance of power. Even today, modern conflicts reflect its influence, proving that the lessons of World War II remain dangerously relevant. History remembers Blitzkrieg, not only as a tactic, but as a symbol of how war itself transformed. If you have listened this far, you are no longer just a viewer, you are a witness. These stories are not echoes from textbooks. They are voices from a world that burned, so ours could exist. Every episode on this channel preserves memories that time is trying to erase. By subscribing to Voices from World War II, you help keep these voices alive, not as glorified myths, but as lessons written in real human lives. Join this journey through history, not to celebrate war, but to understand it so. It is never repeated.